One of the many advantages of observables is they can be canceled. The consumer can tell the producer that they have had enough and no more values will be delivered. In this lesson, we are going to discuss how to unsubscribe from an observable and explore a few techniques for managing observable subscriptions. Let's get going. When we ended the previous lesson, we had created an observable that emits values on an interval. We also returned a function to clear the interval when the observable completes, but for the sake of demonstration, we were just calling complete ourselves after emitting a single value. In reality, with most long-running observables, the consumer of the observable, or whatever is calling subscribe, will need to tell the observable when it has had enough. So, how do we unsubscribe from an observable? Well, it's actually quite easy. Whenever you subscribe to an observable, a subscription object is returned. So, let's actually add a variable called subscription here to capture the subscription being returned. This object contains a few methods that we are interested in. The first and most important is the unsubscribe method. Calling unsubscribe is a way of telling the observable to stop any work it is doing. We're no longer interested. This also cleans up any resources being used by the observable, for instance, clearing the set interval that we registered before. To see this in action, let's wrap this unsubscribe call in a set timeout. And we'll just have it fire after 3.5 seconds. And let's also remove the complete call that we had before within our observable, as it's no longer needed. So what we should see is our observable emit 3 items and then complete. When we run this, we can see the observable emit 3 times and then stop. So there's a couple of things worth noting here. The first is, when we call unsubscribe, our cleanup method was fired, taking care of the interval. The second is something that was a little confusing to me when I started learning about observables. The callback we registered for complete with our observer was not fired. With observables, the complete callback you register is only fired for complete notifications that occur within the observable. For instance, us manually calling complete on the subscriber within our observable function. This is worth noting if you come across a situation where you plan on executing some logic on complete. Just calling unsubscribe on a subscription object will not cause your registered complete callback to be fired. To wrap up this lesson, let's actually take this one step further and create a second subscription. So let's just create a variable called subscription2 and we'll call subscribe again on our observable. Remember, with observables, this will trigger a second execution path, so we will now have 2 intervals running. So let's save this, and after 3 seconds, we can see our first subscription is completed by the unsubscribe call in the set timeout, but the second is still running. So we need to unsubscribe from this as well. Now after 3 items, both observables will stop. This works, but there's also another way to unsubscribe from multiple subscriptions at once. Subscription objects feature an add method which lets you add multiple subscriptions together, and subsequently clean them all up in one call. So let's call add on our first subscription, passing it our second subscription. We can then get rid of the unsubscribe call below on subscription 2. Now when we save, we can see that both subscriptions are completed in our one unsubscribe call. Whichever method you prefer works fine, it's really just personal preference. To recap, when you subscribe to an observable, a subscription object is returned. Subscriptions contain an unsubscribe method, which allows you, the consumer, to tell the observable that you are done. Calling unsubscribe will also clean up any resources being used by the observable. If you want to unsubscribe from multiple subscriptions in one call, you can add them together using the subscription.add method. In future lessons, we will discuss various ways to automate the unsubscribe process using operators.